All right, and we are live. Welcome to the last episode of D&D Cascade, where we are going to be doing a Q&A live for all of the viewers that we may or may not have. Currently, we do not have any, so I guess that would be may not have.
Hey!
What we're going to be doing over the course of this stream is basically just talking about the campaign that we completed, that we wrapped up. Took us almost, 8, 9 months, something like that?
We could have had a baby in
Yep,
that time. Some people did have babies.
Some people did ipso facto have babies over the course of our campaign. Nobody that was involved with the campaign, mind you. All the same,
food babies.
I do like to.
Wow.
All the same, I do like to consider a successfully completed campaign as a D&D baby of mine that I then lock away in the folders of my computer and jump drive, and now the Google Drive. Never to see the light of day again, except for when I need to pull information on an NPC that I used from it. So, now that we know that I store babies, both alive and dead, in my dungeon, because they don't tend to last long, but, you know, having
You are the dungeon master.
Like, hey, that's why they call it that. I didn't prepare any sort of agenda for this at all whatsoever. So to start off, let's begin with anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts that they have right off the top of their head that they just have to have answered?
Did anybody have any kids?
Any of your characters have kids?
Yeah.
I think Retina's character had kids.
Yeah, Retina's character actually had a kid during the campaign. It was part of one of her personal story arcs, and I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't get to see that one kind of all the way through, because that one actually was a personal story character arc that I don't frequently see in campaigns. I've frequently had players that are like, yeah, well, I've got family back home, but never one that's been like, yes, I've got a kid and a caretaker looking after them. That is not my husband, because it wasn't until the first major time skip that we did that Retina actually repaired her personal relationship with her husband. So that was a really interesting personal character development that I don't frequently see. And like I said, it makes me kind of sad that we didn't get to see the resolution of that arc.
I would just like to say my romantic entanglements did not ruin this campaign.
I don't know how true that is.
It wasn't me!
Good job, I guess.
I kept showing up.
I mean, I couldn't tell if that was sarcasm or not.
Oh, I mean, I didn't think it was. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Wait, were we talking in character or out of character just then?
Out of character, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Oh, wait, there we go.
It would not have been the first player in a campaign of mine to drop out basically because they had stopped dating, or because they felt too awkward to continue, or, you know, XYZ number of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people say that they don't have a problem with that sort of thing, but what a lot of people come to find is that, you know, for people who can, you know, just not bring their personal stuff to the table, it's kind of unnerving, because it's basically like you've got this history with this other person, and then that other person is sitting across the table and expecting you to continue doing the thing that you've been doing all campaign long. And that can get pretty awkward. Particularly if at the start of the campaign, or at some point in the campaign, you know, they re-roll, and then they wrote their backstories together, and then they break up, and it's like...
Thanks.
I'm not
That call
singling out Leah.
Thanks.
It happened before. Okay.
Shout out.
Yeah, no, I'm actually not singling you out. It's happened in one or two other campaigns that I've run. It happens more often than you'd think it would. And a lot of people are really embarrassed to admit that's why they just stopped coming altogether. So frequently I get, some sort of other random reasons for why they're no longer attending.
If I had to stop talking to every female friend who I've either had feelings for or hanky-pankied with, I would have next to zero female friends. So
Right, but that second qualifier includes one or two people.
the second qualifier includes a good number of people.
Is that number 2, Brandon?
And that number is easily 3.
Okay, so is it 3?
I think it is 3. I'll have to go back and research get accurate numbers. I'm pretty sure it's 3.
Okay, all right. Just so we're clear on that. So since we've started out with apparently interpersonal topics, does anybody have any questions on that sort of nature other than the one that we just spent?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do kisses on the cheek count as hanky-panky?
No.
No.
Okay. Does making out count as hanky-panky?
No.
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 Okay.
It depends.
It depends? Okay, yeah. Well, then the number still sits at 3.
Okay. All right. But as far as table politics goes, personal relationships or rivalries between players at the table, sometimes between the player and the DM, that sort of thing. All of which I've seen a decent amount of. I can actually only think of 1 or 2 instances of a rivalry between a DM and a player, though, which I think is partly a testament to how abrasive I can be at the table and away from the table, but also partly a testament to how sometimes childish people can be concerning what, when you get right down to it, is just another sort of game. But I know some people do tend to take their board games pretty seriously. So, it doesn't really surprise me that much.
I have a story. I was DMing a group, and I had one player who wanted to go and do everything and never wanted to shut up and wanted to kind of dominate the whole play of the group.
Mm-hmm.
And the players tried to rip off.
Brandon, was that player
Yes.
me?
No, that player was
Okay.
Jamonte.
Oh.
And the other players in the group, rather than, and this was when I was a rookie DM, rather than talking to them, and it's just yo man, we're all trying to play and have fun. End game, their characters decided to try and rip off his character's arms.
I remember this story.
Yeah, and they barely failed to do it, but his character did quiet down for the next couple of sessions. But it was not a problem-solving way I'd recommend to do in the future.
Yeah, definitely. When I list, when people ask me about hobbies that I have in job interviews, I always mention, it's I host regular weekly meetings that focus on team building, conflict resolution, and
It's such a
thought
bullshitter,
exercises.
but it's not.
Yeah, it actually does help with team building. I wouldn't say that it really makes us better at conflict management, because I've known some players throughout the whole course of their career at the table to basically just sit there and punch their way through everything. And I've known other players whose entire strategy for getting into social situations is to look at me and say, "Can I roll to seduce them?" Which, mind you, worked only so well until the feminist in me got the better of me, and I was like, "You can try," and then I more or less just shut them down with like, "Well, what do you know? What she's? Do you know what that NPC is into? What are their interests? What do you know what their type of person is? Maybe they enjoy somebody who isn't just a steroid munching, muscle bound idiot."
Yeah, on the.
And,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
that cut that habit short pretty quick, and I know Brandon has a relatable story on that front.
Yeah, well, on the same note as the Jamonte story, with like, oh, I want my character to go hit on this person. I want my character. It's like, okay, yeah, it is a fantasy game. Yeah, you like do want to live out the things that you can't do in real life. And I'll throw you a bone. And like, I threw his character a few prostitutes, and in the same sense, though, I was like, it is a story you're in, and your actions have consequences. And those prostitutes also like suckered him for all the information out of him and were like spies for the organization they were working against. And they walked into the organization to like fight the dude, and he was like super prepared. And it's like, wait, how'd you know we were coming today? He told my whores yesterday. That was my brothel, like he went to. He told them everything. And it's like, yeah, I'm just an adventurer in town. We're here to take down this lord. Yeah, you want to sleep with me? I'm so cool. And it's like, yeah. You like I will
so
throw
basically
you a bone, but I'm also gonna beat you upside the head with it if you want to like play like that.
Yeah. So basically, you Peter Bailished them.
Yeah.
You little fingered them. Brandon, do you frequently finger your characters?
Yes, all the time. And it's like I'm an asexual person, but I do recognize like people want romance in their fantasies sometimes, and like that's cool.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of absolutely including sexual situations in campaigns. I'm not sure if you can tell that.
But you can't write them very well.
No, I think I pimped Al like fourth session or third session.
Yeah, something like that. But no, and one of the reasons that I do that is because I feel that, you know, realistically, if you look at it, your characters in between towns would spend days, and if not for Monet's breaking the game and inventing the steam machine like 4 sessions in, if not for that, you guys would have spent like weeks, sometimes months on the road. Like, and you can't tell me that people that, you know, you look at, you fight next to, you know, they're all well and good, but you can't tell me that, you know, you don't want to get into a new city, look at each other and say, okay, I'm going to spend the next 5 hours looking at not your faces specifically. Like, I have ridden in a wagon that was behind horses that started to smell halfway through the voyage. And I cannot take any more of your face for the next 24 hours. You know, I feel like that adds more flavor to it. And I know sometimes it, you know, does kind of get us sidetracked, but at the same time, 9 times out of 10 when the players are seeking out those sorts of situations, what we find is that...
it gets sad.
Well, it frequently turns into those sorts of situations where, like, it becomes one of those fun things that you can kind of just laugh at as it comes and goes sort of thing. It almost always generates some sort of story that they can tell later on amidst the same community of tabletop. Other times, maybe not so much. But I feel that it just, in general, enriches the story.
People in real life have hanky-panky.
Yeah, they do. Some people in real life have lots and lots of hanky-panky, Brandon. Lots of it.
What?
Yes, many hours of it.
I don't believe it.
Like Don and JD. All the way, Don and JD.
Woo!
Well, I mean, not to toot my own horn. Don does it enough. But let's see. Does anybody have any questions as far as this campaign in particular, the Cascade campaign? Anybody got any questions as
What
far
happened?
as like plot, story, etc.?
What happened to Armos?
Armos Delzoon. I was debating on whether or not to make him have him make an appearance in Act 3. But I felt that there were already enough titular characters involved already. I mean, you had, of course, Rogue.
Who was Armos?
Armos was the...
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, was that one armor. You remember him. He's made a couple of appearances in other campaigns, most notably the one, Ifhara. You know, the Ifharan continent where you played Lily Rendil and Dawn the Sky. Yeah, he made an appearance there, and you guys ran into him in Badrakaz. But this time around, I placed him in charge of the guild that Monet was raised by, essentially. They were called the Midnight Makers. Yeah, that's where he was. He was basically just sitting around in Giraz the entirety of the campaign. And he actually sent Monet a small item that I had referred to as the... I had it written in my notes as the Clockwork Heart. Even though it wasn't really a clockwork item, but it was meant for that dragon that she created and then brought it around for all of like 3 sessions before the Sleeping Gather workshop. But it was meant to be an item that would augment Mirth to the point where he'd be viable in combat, because as it stood by the time that she had created him, he was kind of behind the curve of combat. And that was an intentional thing just to make sure that he didn't get really out of hand and really way too powerful. I didn't want to give you guys another character, which basically, despite my best efforts, kind of happened in Erica.
I really liked Erica. She was underpowered as far as what we were doing.
Yeah.
But powerful enough to be, like, useful.
Yeah, I feel like with Erica, I did a reasonable job as far as making sure that you guys didn't end up with what was essentially another PC, because even when I did go ahead and upgrade her to full-fledged player character status, she was, what, level 14, I think?
Yeah, she was 14. She capped out at 14.
Yeah, so she was 5 or 6 levels behind where the rest of the party was. But given that did allow her to have a couple of instances of counterspell available in her repertoire of spells, she wasn't useless.
Yeah.
Far from it, I would argue, because even with the way counterspelling works in 5th edition, just the fact that you're able to roll for it and have a chance of making something else that your opponent isn't casting not go off, that's pretty huge. Particularly in the fight with Vecna, you did prevent a couple of pivotal spells from going off of a couple of Erica's counterspells, even though the DC was like really, really, really high.
Yeah, I felt like she was really well done. Like, I kept saying, like, man, she, there's so much potential as she gets levels, but it was good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know the leadership feat in 3.5.
I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah, that one caps out. You get one follower that follows you who goes up to like level 17.
Cohort. Yep.
Yeah, cohort, and then you get like 136 level 1 characters, and like 50 level 2 and 30 level 3, and
leadership is meant for those campaigns where you basically have what is a mobile camp following you. It allows you to introduce people who would manage things like selling off goods or storing things or holding on to stuff, looking after these things for you. What I like about the leadership feat is that, not only it gives you a cohort, and if you buff up your charisma to a high enough point, they can essentially be you, basically. So there is that. But at the same time, if you take to utilizing these followers, and they're essentially just worshippers, right? If you take to using them, in that mobile camp that I mentioned, you can essentially, you can use them for all those things that I mentioned, but at the same time, the DM can have a spy infiltrate the ranks, or they can have a spellcaster come and charm or dominate his way through your camp and sabotage your base of operations. So it's a lot of fun, definitely. I like it. But a lot of players, they're like, well, I don't get many feats. I don't want to waste it on leadership. The leadership, I feel, is a great investment. And that's all well and good, but this is a 5th edition campaign that we're supposed to be talking about. So that was a lovely tangent.
Well, we had cohorts in this one. Every now and then we had somebody traveling with us or people we could boss around.
Yeah. Well, to some degree.
Not too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not a whole lot, but particularly not on the that we can boss around bit. But definitely had your fair share of NPCs here and there. Any other questions about the story, or questions about why I did what I did with the story or the world building, what have you?
When we went to Fort Travas for the first time and were investigating the necromancer, that was Halcyon?
Yep, it was Halcyon Even the whole time. I knew that you guys would immediately suspect Bradley Durek if he was in any way, shape, or form a spellcaster. And I knew that any spellcaster that was just sort of standing around would immediately draw your interest, particularly if they were named. But I knew that if I made them a healer, it would use that prejudice, or rather anti-prejudice. What word am I looking for? That instant trust and liking that people have of healers in general, that it would throw you off the trail. But the thing is, and this is something that you really only know if you've played a lot of editions of D&D, but healing spells at one point in time were considered part of the necromancy school, because necromancy is the school of magic that deals with the manipulation of life force. So it makes perfect sense then that healing would be within that school. But later on they changed it to conjuration, and I'm not sure what it was in 5th edition. Not off the top of my head.
I think it was transmutation. Let me look at it.
Yeah, that seems like it would also make sense. But I don't know. It's an interesting, long and storied thing, and it makes a lot of sense, for a healer to have interest in dead bodies, cadavers, that sort of thing, because that helps them, hone their practical skills. And in a way, if the caster is innovative enough, could also help them, research new spells, that sort of thing. So I knew that if I made Halcyon Even the necromancer behind all of the undead showing up at Fort Travas, a healer, that it would just throw you guys off the trail. It wouldn't be impossible for you to realize that it was her because, Animate Dead is a clerical spell. It's on the cleric spell list. But I know, I just knew that you guys probably wouldn't suspect her as your go-to.
So
it's evocation, by the way.
Evocation in this one? Okay, yeah. Yes, it's changed in almost every edition.
Yeah.
If we would have, when we were fighting her in the mini session, and she kept asking to get away, I felt like you had story stuff you wanted to do with her down the road, because she was really super hard trying to get away. If we had let her live, would the story have panned out any differently?
Not to a great degree. Mostly, you mostly would have had to deal with more undead. More undead than you already did deal with. There was the Draco Lich and the Lich that were problems along the, like, pretty much constantly along the way, even though the Lich only showed up once. And the reason for the Lich only showing up once was because once you guys destroyed him in Bagadro, I rolled the D10 for him to, respawn out of his phylactery, and rolled the maximum amount of time and put his respawn at 11 days, and then you guys kind of just closed out the rest of the campaign within that scope. So he only got to make one appearance, but alas, Gandrin the Lich, I had planned to use him at least twice, but then, RNG. But aside from that, no, not really. She basically just would have been another cleric that you would have had to deal with, which I feel like that's kind of overkill, because once you get to 2 clerics, then combat just becomes really boring once you've got 2 clerics, because they basically just stand there healing each other.
Yeah, you'd have to nuke them down in one turn, one round.
Yeah, it's like in 3rd edition too, and revised 3rd edition, it's really difficult to deal with parties that have more than one healer. I've heard horror stories of one time there was a party that rolled up 4 clerics, and that was just it. They basically just formed this circle jerk and sat there the whole campaign just healing each other. Like, even when one of them got critical hit really, really bad, the other 3 members were just like, heal. And that was it. That was the whole campaign. Like, they just healed each other until the enemies ran out of supplies or buffing spells or what have you. And because they had so many will saving throws that they could contest their opponents with, because Bestow Curse is also a cleric spell. I remember one part of that story was they all cast Bestow Curse, starting with the guy that forced him to lower his will save, followed up with the curse that gives you a 50% chance to not do anything on your turn. Like, you just lose your turn. Mm-hmm. And then followed it up with I think it was -6 to Constitution. So they just more or less spent the whole time just cursing him until the boss just kind of sat there and was like, I can't do anything. And then they basically just took out their maces and dealt 5 damage a hit to him until he died. That was the whole boss encounter. Like, they just used the limited AoE that clerics have to clear out the room, and then we're just like, whatever, man.
Shield phalanx.
Yeah. So it turns out being for the better that you guys dealt with Halcyon even when you did.
Oh, yeah. I definitely think that's the right choice. And then the other... What's up?
No, I was adjusting my seat. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the other would it have had a gigantic difference was, I think we had an opportunity to fight the agents the first time they showed up at the house. And
yes.
If we would have killed them there, would they have kept coming back?
No. But then again, if you had fought them when they first showed up, like right there at your doorstep, you would have lost, because Orson did start out at level 8, and at that point in time, you guys were, I think, level 6, I want to say.
I think 5.
5 or 6.
Yeah, I think 6. Yeah, 6 and 5.
Yeah. That would have been... Orson would have been feasible enough for you guys to take out. But the thing was that Byron was starting out at a level 8 barbarian. And then Rockefeller started out as a level 10 wizard. So it definitely would have been one of those lopsided combats where you basically just get steamrolled. mind you, I would not have allowed you guys to slip into a TPK that early in the campaign. That's not any fun for the party, and if the party decides to just abandon the campaign instead of re-rolling, then that's even less fun for me, because then I have to spend another 2 weeks preparing the new campaign for the group.
We just all re-roll as like house buyers looking into Gibson's house, and the real estate agent's like, "You don't want it; it's haunted."
Well, the funniest thing, there was this night some time ago, and there was some shouting about some sort of parchment or something, and then the whole place just burned down. But it's got a really weird basement.
He didn't even know about the basement.
Right?
Like, that was such a surprise. He just moved the box and it was someone like, oh, hey, there's a hole in the ground. Wonder where this goes.
Yeah, I had to work really hard on how to get you guys to actually go into the basement. And even once I figured out how to get you guys down there, you guys still spent like half a session avoiding it. Because I think the general sentiment was, no, nothing good happens in basements. Nothing.
Well,
there could be dire rats. We could get diseases. We don't know how diseases work in 5th edition. It'll be terrible.
I mean, it's kind of like how you took, like, this humongous handful of dice, and you were just like, well, guys, you looked at us, and then you just dropped it onto the grid and, like, arranged them, and he's like, that's 40 hands.
Yeah.
I have 36.
Yeah, 36. Let's
36.
not overshoot the margin.
I'm sorry, 36.
But yeah, I was really looking hard through the monster manual to try and find something that would fit this dungeon, because all I had was like these things called observers that were basically like dollar store beholders, and I knew I wanted to use those, but then I didn't have anything to put into the hallway, and I thought, Vecna is the undead god of magic and secrets and undead, so why not just, use some undead? But then I was like, well, I've already used zombies. Like, the players are going to get tired of fighting zombies eventually, so I thought, I got to find something else. And lo and behold, crawling hands were a challenge rating 1/2 creature, which only became a problem when you guys were level 5, and 2 of these things effectively challenge a party of 1st level adventurers. And since there were 6 of you, that meant that at the very least there had to be 12 hands in the encounter. But the thing was, because you had Fireball and other sorts of fun AoE spells, I had to compensate the fact that with how low health these things have, you could essentially just clear out an entire room with 1 Fireball.
Well, we couldn't use Fireball because it was a small area. I don't even think I was that high of a level to have Fireball yet.
You were level 5 at the very least.
Are you sure?
Actually,
I think we were like 3 or 4 going through it.
You started out at level 4. I remember that much. But yeah, you're right. You were still level 4 when you were going through there. But you still had some degree of AoE spells, like a single casting of Burning Hands would wipe out like 9 crawling hands. So I had to make sure that there were enough to actually challenge you guys. And it was also kind of a lesson in positioning, because that was the first time that you guys actually had a combat where the positioning really, really mattered, particularly in terms of just not getting surrounded. And you failed that test, big time. The mage got out in front and then got surrounded, almost died. The fighter got pretty low because he allowed himself to get surrounded. And it was difficult to not get surrounded in that combat because of the sheer number of enemies that there were. But at the same time, you could have positioned yourself a little bit better. Like, if you had stayed in adjacent spaces, that ended up being like 1 less attack against each character because you're occupying those spaces. And that ends up being 2 fewer enemies that are flanking each character. which would remove advantage from those two. And as we have seen throughout the entire course of the campaign, advantage matters a lot. Like, just a lot. Now that you don't, in 5th edition, since you don't have to confirm critical hits, a 20 is just an automatic hit. Having advantage means that you basically double your chance for critical hits. And that's huge.
Yeah, that's one of the things I realized was a big difference between 3.5 and 5th edition was in 5th edition you had like these huge crit ranges where you could score a crit, and in 5th edition it was just no, you get a 20 flat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I really like that because I personally prefer the 3rd edition way because it does reward you for having a very high AC or that sort of thing. Because once you roll inside that threat range, you do still have to roll again and hit the enemy's AC. And that goes both ways. Like, players may have a hard time hitting an enemy with a high AC, or enemies have a hard time criticaling against the tank of the party, whose whole job is to basically absorb hits. And being able to downgrade those hits into being able to downgrade critical hits into normal hits is a big part of being a tank in 3.5, because you are expected to live a very long time. The gold standard for a tank in a combat is to be able to survive the entire combat without needing to be healed the whole time. Basically, just having a combination of hit points and AC to be able to withstand the entirety of a combat encounter. Obviously, that doesn't include boss encounters where healing really becomes a very, very necessary part of the entire encounter. But yeah, that's pretty much the best that a tank can aspire to, more or less.
You talk a lot.
Yeah, I do talk a lot. But I do see the merit in both methods of doing critical hits. On the one hand, it feels really good scoring a critical hit, and being able to make that easier ups the stakes a lot, because enemies can critical you easier, you critical enemies easier, makes everything more exciting. It also adds the potential for a lot more damage output on both ends. And when the damage output can reach such exponential heights so very quickly, it just makes things more interesting, I think. But at the same time, it's really satisfying to be standing frontline at the front of your party, and the DM looks at you and says threatening critical, rolls and says it's a regular hit. Like, that breath of relief is amazing, I think. Maybe just personal for me, but
Cutting words.
Yeah.
That was a lifesaver a lot of times.
Yeah.
But yeah, cutting words wouldn't reduce a crit in this edition.
Yeah. But yeah, if you guys think of a question that you want to ask me, you can type it up in the chat, and I'll get to it eventually. Any other questions? Let's see. How do we get on to the topic of critical hits?
We were talking about the hands. I had a comment on it.
Yeah.
I think a big problem we had in the early part of the campaign was like player greed and people wanting to hoard items. Because I know specifically that we gave Ratina that skull that could cast Ray of Enfeeblement.
Mm-hmm.
That we got on like the 3rd session or something, super early.
Yeah.
And never used it once.
Not once.
Despite all the melee characters we fought and everything like we hit.
It was actually part of a side quest up in the Glove Mountains that you guys never discovered because, of course, Retina and her player, Lori, she had forgotten all about the skull, like, in its entirety. But it was actually a quest that you guys could have knocked out while you were in the mountains, going through the volcano.
Depression.
It was worth about, I think, 3,000 experience points.
Ugh.
Well, I mean, spread across the whole party, I guess technically 18,000 experience points, but, who's counting?
Mhm.
You.
Me. Yes, me.
Yeah, that was like the most depressing thing for me at the start of this play group was like nobody really wanted to work together and was just like, what can we get? What can we get? And then like we came together near the end. It was good.
You guys
Well,
actually
it's hard
started.
because a lot of it had to do with somebody.
Me?
Somebody.
Me?
No names. No
Say
names.
my name. I already said Lori's name like 3 times.
No, but Gibson did want a lot of stuff. Just saying. And, I mean, we all had that problem of what can we get with the exception of Monet.
Yeah.
I do vaguely remember a certain point in time early in the campaign where one party member stole from another party member.
Are we talking about that bag of holding?
No, we're talking about the pearl.
No, the bag of devouring. Oh, the pearl?
Oh, and the bag of flowers. My bad.
Oh yeah.
About that.
The bag
And
of
Gibson
flowers.
pulls it out later to pull off one of the funniest stories I have ever heard in D&D in my life.
Yeah, we need to hear
No,
that.
that night of like when we got the bag of devouring out of the cave, and I just messaged JD like, I don't trust my party members not to steal this or break it. Gibson paints a copy of it and leaves it at his house and carries around the copy, and then like literally 3 minutes after I sent that message, the party breaks the copied bag.
Yeah.
I was just like, what?
And it came in handy later.
It was not
Oh,
even
super
the
duper
party. It was, what's his face?
It was Mirth. The Clockwork Dragon.
Which technically was JD's fault. He did that just to mess with you.
Yeah, I'll grant you that.
Well, I mean, it was good because
It was
the party stopped thinking about the bag after it was punctured.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so for any viewers out there, this campaign was nicknamed League of Bad Decision Making. What were probably like the top 3 you think were major bad decisions we did in this campaign?
Dude, I'm motion sick from
Let's
Chris.
see.
Can I say one that on that topic before we get
Okay,
into that?
okay.
Sure.
Aside from the whole Simone romance thing and just completely like destroying
Well, no.
any relation to Byron ever.
Hang out,
Not
that's
Brandon.
too-
Not too.
Not
Okay,
that, but
go ahead,
when-
Brandon, with your comment.
when Gibson climbed into the bag of devouring or rather put Hercules into it to put him to the other side. I
Yeah.
remember that night I rolled both of the rolls because he had to make a strength check, like 20 to grab him and then like a 30 to get him out or something like that. And I rolled both of them, and Gibson passed the first strength check, and the second one was an 18. And I was about to tell JD, I was like, oh my god, I just killed Hercules. And JD's like, Hercules' hand clings to the side of the bag. Oh my god, Hercules is gonna kill me!
Yeah.
It was a fun turn of events.
It was quite amazing. But the top three poor decisions. Let's see. Oh, it's been a really, really long campaign. But I would have to say, at least as far as the plot is concerned, obviously, the player characters literally getting into bed with the villains, not with
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Hey, Bradbury almost got it. Not really.
Almost. Not for lack of trying, though. And you know what they say. It's the thought that counts. And there
Monet
were
was in
many
there.
thoughts.
Monet
Many
was
thoughts
in there.
on Bradbury's part.
Woo.
But let's see. Top 3 poor decisions.
Getting rid of the scroll. Tapestry.
Oh yeah. Getting rid of the
Yeah.
parchment was a massively poor idea.
Chris all by himself.
Yeah, that was.
Yep. The monetary gain in that case was
Hey,
worth
money.
it. Yeah. Woo! It's shiny. Me want. But no, the tapestry actually depicted the countryside where Kaz betrayed Vecna in this world. And it was actually at that set of cliffs where the Sword of Cass was found. And if you recall, and I know none of you do because when I mentioned it previously, you guys didn't recall, but there was a stretch of land that I actually vividly described to you guys as you were entering the swamps for the first time and only time. And I just, paused you on your journey. I said, as you journey into Heckworth, I described that landscape, and you guys were like, neat! That has no bearing on anything. And this was after I had, given full detailed description to the tapestry. Like, it was word for word the same description that I had written for you guys for the tapestry, and it just went over your heads entirely.
And we also gotta understand that.
We weren't recording.
We weren't recording at that time.
Yeah, we weren't recording at that time.
Well, not only that, I felt like at that time we were more focused on that frickin' scroll that we only consulted once. Like, who was our guess that we weren't after the scroll down there? We were after the tapestry.
I didn't think we were after anything. I thought we were after the Fae that was down there.
Yeah, you were hunting down the Dullahan.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying at that time we were more concerned with the scroll than we were with the tapestry.
Yeah, the scroll that was.
So we just kind of put the tapestry out of our mind.
Yeah.
And then Sai sold it.
Yep.
I think somebody just died on the inside.
Let's see. So I would put that at number 3 for worst decisions. Second worst decision, I would say, probably accepting a pact from an archdevil.
Really?
Yes.
That's funny.
And the only reason that it isn't the worst decision that you made was because of how you utilized it in the campaign. You did manage to make it work for you up to the point where it stalled you guys out and prevented you from getting to the vault before the Vec Knights had opened it.
Hey, that's Lasagna's fault.
Yes, it is. But you put yourself into that situation, and you could have gotten out of that situation anytime that you had wanted to. If Lori had been there, she probably would have attempted to break you out. But since she was not there for that session, she made no motion toward it. Well, no, she was there for one of those sessions where we were dealing with it. She did. I remember distinctly that she was like, "I want to go boink the flowered one."
Oh yeah.
He's a shapeshifter, and I want to jump on that shapeshifted dong. I remember that was specifically something that happened.
Yeah, because Monet was in on that too.
Yeah.
It was.
But the all-time worst decision, I think, of the whole campaign was I can't decide on which one I want it to be. It's a toss-up between either A, splitting the party in during Act 3 when you guys went separate ways to find the Sword of Kaz, or the and going to Argrove to help with the elf orc problem. I can't decide if it's that or not killing Rockefeller on the top of the Globe Peak.
Yes, it wasn't something Gibson did.
It was not. Well, I mean, technically, it's something that you didn't do.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because you were also involved, a pretty major proponent of splitting the party during Act 3, if I recall correctly. And so basically, you spared Rockefeller on the top of the Globe Peak because Bradbury was like, "Don't kill him," even though you had a very clear window.
Yeah,
and opening
it is
to
something
do so.
Gibson did.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the reason that you didn't do it was because another player urged you to. I have no doubt that you absolutely would have killed him if Leah hadn't been there. Like, don't kill Rockefeller, please. But the thing is, that was one of the few instances where I would have allowed a death of one of the agents to actually have a physical impact on, or rather a plot story impact on the rest of the campaign. So if you recall, you guys never saw that Drow Blackguard again, the anti-paladin. And that's the reason for that, because I was allowing, if you had killed any of the agents on the peak, to stay dead for the remainder of the campaign. So if you had killed Rockefeller there, then it would have been a whole different story, because Rockefeller wouldn't have been alive to persuade Bradbury to come to Bagdro with him. He wouldn't have... there were so many portions of the campaign after that point that were shaped by Rockefeller still existing. So I would consider that one of the worst decisions that was made throughout the whole campaign. Right there next to, let's split the party. It's Act 3, let's split the party. Nothing bad can happen of this.
Let's split up, gang.
Yeah.
I will admit though, like saving the elves was a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. You guys definitely accomplished the right things by splitting up, but at the same time, at this point in time, you guys had access to the spell of teleport. You had a Helm of Teleportation.
Yeah.
And we ended up getting 2 of those.
You ended up getting 2 of those.
Bradbury had that.
Yeah. You could have very easily just gone over to Argrove and then teleported over. Well, you actually could have gone and gone down to where the Sword of Kaz was first, and then teleported over to Argrove, and had time to complete both events. And it would have been a full scope thing, right? Like, you guys would have been able to do everything in your power to, stop this or that thing.
Yeah. The Sword of Kaz came in gigantic handy, so it's nice having.
Oh, yeah.
Well, wait, hang on. Did we... Wait. Never mind. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So that would be the top 3 worst decisions. Number 3 was... what was number 3? I forgot.
Selling the tapestry.
Yeah. Number 3 was selling the tapestry. Number 2 was making a deal with Asmodeus. Because, making a deal with the Prince of All Evil seems like a really good idea for a good aligned character. And the worst decision, I'm going to go ahead and give it to not killing Rockefeller.
Nice.
All right, so after that, what were the 3 most admirable things we did?
3 most admirable. Oh, there are so many admirable moments. Why you got to make me pick? Let's see. Coming in at number 3.
Oh, we need more than that.
Okay, let's do top 5 then. Let's see, the 5.
Do it by character.
Huh?
Do it by character.
Okay. Most admirable things that each character did. Let's see. and I'm actually going to count these as what the player did or thought to do instead of what the character themselves did, because I think that speaks for more ingenuity of the players, and I'm all about rewarding ingenuity of my players at the table, because that's one of the biggest reasons that I like DMing, is to see what people come up with if I put them in XYZ situation. So we'll start out with Lori, rest in peace.
Rip in peace.
I mean, she kind of just fell off the face of the planet. And she's probably not going to watch this, but if she does, Lori, it was a delight playing with you. I wish you had stayed for the whole campaign. Let's see. I think probably one of the best things that Lori accomplished in the scope of the campaign was probably the heist that she pulled on Ephraim's estate. Getting into Oakrife's inner hideout and just doing all that poking around in the Ephraim estate. First, took like sheer luck on her part to not fumble any of the rolls, and also spoke to everybody else is looking everywhere else for this, that, or the other thing. I'm going to go over here to this place that we think we're done with, but might be able to find something there. And it's worth noting that Brandon also thought of this, but definitely would not have had the character stats to pull it off, because she got in with a mixture of deception checks. She disguised herself very well, and made tons of checks just to, undo locks, not set off alarms, trick guards, that sort of thing. And was able to uncover a lot about the rest of the campaign world at large. So that I really like that out-of-the-box thinking. It's arguable whether or not that made as much of a significant impact as other accomplishments did. But as I recall, the acid that she discovered in Ephraim's estate, in Oakrife's secret lab, she did actually end up using it, and it was very effective. It dealt a ton of acid damage. I want to say to the Lich, Gandrin, there at the end. Let's see. So that would definitely be Lori's. Oh man, let's do Al next. With
Michael Lich.
yeah, with
Round of applause to him.
Yeah.
Woo!
Al definitely did a lot worthy of note in the campaign, but I'm actually not going to specify going toe to toe with the Draco Lich, because I think deep down even he'll admit, he owes that to getting really, really, really lucky and rolling 2 crits in a row right after each other. Yeah. So he owes that to luck. Let's not kid around. It made for a really, really fun moment. Really, really impressive. But it was not, I think, his most admirable feat. For me, I think for Al, being able to, I actually really want to, first, I want to take a moment to congratulate Al for his outside-of-the-box character creation. I've heard a lot of people talk about rolling up beardless dwarves and using beardless dwarf as the centerpiece for their character, but I've not seen it pulled off quite as well as Al has done it. So first off, hats off for that. But secondly, I want to say that his most admirable moment was actually a little bit spread out through the entire campaign. Starting out with the first, in the first leg of the campaign, Delana's involvement with Governor Rayrol was kind of seen as like a kind of joke sort of thing. But later
Well,
on,
he did get pimped out, poured out, whatever, by Gibson.
and it was seen as kind of a gag moment, but there was a deeper story that I wanted to tell with Rayrol, and unfortunately we didn't get to see the full grasp of that. But what you did get was a little bit deeper into her story, and it was Al's gentle approach to it, I want to say, that allowed you guys to get the glimpse of what you did. And Rayrol turned out to be a very powerful informant throughout the course of the game. There were like 2 or 3 major decisions that Al made based off of information that he had gotten from Governor Rayrol. So bravo to finding something where nobody else looked. So hats off. Any questions, comments about that one?
What?
I love Al's character.
Oh, thank you.
Hmm.
What happened to Rare?
Governor Rayrol, as a full-blooded elf, went on to rule Dyke for a great period of time. She was seen as one of the most lenient and also opulent rulers that Dyke, in fact, all of Galatia saw. But her time with in contact with Delana did it changed her to always kind of look for where the truth is. She was truly moved by what is truth.
Yay. So that whole a little bit of backstory on that.
Yeah, on what is truth.
Yeah. At that point in time, I had just been writing stuff, off on my own, and I was just like, you know what, this actually could fit in with what's going on right now, because there was a whole lot of deception going on, and kind of wanted to just get to the bottom of things. And at the same time, I was actually like really early on contemplating multi-classing.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually know how to pull it off for real.
Yeah.
And I guess that was kind of like one of the notions leading into it.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I really liked about Al's character, was that in a lot of ways it felt kind of like an extension of himself, which I think everybody does to a degree with their first character. They want to go with something that they are comfortable with, but what I don't see from a lot of players on their first campaign is how well Al managed to pull that off. And to be honest, the Delana character was actually one of my favorite parts of this campaign. It's not only impressive with how well he pulled off his character at all, but what makes it really impressive is that it was his first character, and he managed to ease into, settle into the role, I think, just impeccably well. So, once again, congratulations, Al. Easily one of the best first playthroughs in D&D that I've ever seen.
Woo! Yay! Thank you. I do plan on playing a lot more. Just, I'm not sure if I want to go back and play 3.5 or anything, because 5th edition seems, I guess, fluid.
Yeah, they definitely put a lot of work into streamlining combat in 5th edition. I just prefer that there are more customization opportunities in 3.5. And I'll definitely. I would be very interested in playing another campaign without, regardless of what edition it is, because although I do much more prefer 3.5 as opposed to 5th edition. Ultimately, you've got to play what the players are willing to play, or what they prefer to play. Just because you can fantasize about running a game in a system, but if you don't have players to play your game, then what's really the point, right? Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to future tabletop opportunities with Al, because I had so much fun with this one. Let's see, who should I do next? Let's see. Let's go with Monet and Dawn. Probably. Probably Dawn's best.
Is Dawn awake? I think she fell asleep.
Oh, let me wake her up.
She dead. She dead. She
Hey, Dawn,
dead.
you awake?
Wait,
Dawn?
wait.
I don't. Oh man, maybe her camera shouldn't be on when the video goes in there. Professional douchebaggery brought to you.
We have fun here.
I was too excited about that.
That is
What the
Okay.
hell?
So
What did you fucking
Dawn,
get for trying to throw a spider at me?
Dawn/Monet's most impressive moment in the campaign. While I would like to say that it was the steam machine sub-pain train, I think I would more along the lines have to give it to her decision making as far as the church members went. Opting to leave behind Adrian at the church when you guys were going to the Glove Peak actually prevented cult activity in the city while you guys were gone. On the other hand, if you had brought him up to the peak with you, he would have offered more tactical insight to how to best undergo the combat ahead of you. He also would have made a bigger push for, look, we don't have time to help the dwarves in this situation. We need to hurry up and get to the peak. This is the whole reason we undertook this journey. Truth be told, you actually could have had time to go back down and do the volcano afterward, if you thought to. But it's. I would venture to say that that I liked the way that the story turned out. There are a couple of ways that I envisioned it going differently, but it is what it is. Let's see. Jamanta says, I really like the story you guys played. Thank you so much. I wasn't aware that we had anybody watching.
Yeah, we have 2 people.
Oh, yeah, we do. And for those of you who weren't players who are in the stream, you can feel free to ask questions if you want. We will get to it in the chat in a second. There is a question that Leah has. We'll get to it in a second, though. We're going through the most memorable moments right now. For Bradbury's most memorable moments, most admirable thing that he did, obviously the front runner for that you would think would be defecting over to the side of the Vec Knights. Players defecting to the villains is not something that I see every campaign, but I feel like defecting could have been handled a little bit better. But at the same time, I commend Leah for staying true to her character because she only did as her character would have done. And sometimes that's a little bit difficult to do. What I would say is was Bradbury's best moment was utilizing let's see, convincing Valion to remain a portion of the campaign. His involvement prevented Bison from making a return in the campaign, and by association, prevented Eula Godriel from making another appearance. Without Bison tied to the cause, Eula Godriel essentially experienced kind of an existential crisis, like, what has this cult gained me for all the millennia that I have served them if, it cannot quell this emptiness that I have in me, sort of thing. And he sort of just defected the cause once Bison was snuffed out. And
Nice.
that's one of the reasons that I actually wrote Bison like I did, was to keep the Draco Lich a part of the cult. But we can talk more about that in a moment. Let's talk about Gibson's most memorable moment. Let's see. I want to say...
My vote goes towards the fort.
Yeah, I keep on trying to say that it's not when he rescued Hercules from the fort, but I can't not give it to when he rescued Hercules.
Hey, can I just make a note of something real quick, JD?
Yeah, go ahead.
We forgot to mention Retina and how she definitely made Noel Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. How could I forget Noel Jesus?
Noel Jesus was the highlight of the campaign.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry. I'll just redact my earlier statement and say, yes, Retina's highlight was Noel Jesus. Not any other thing. It was Noel Jesus the whole time.
The Knolls have been moved.
The Knolls are moved. They proclaim him Noel Jesus.
They're amazed that they're not following the command of the others.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, Gibson's highlight was definitely rescuing Hercules from the dungeon of from Fort Gervas. And and I can answer this real quickly. Melanie asks, "Who is the dungeon master? Do you all take turns?" I'm the one who's doing the most talking. It was the dungeon master. I've been DMing for 6 years now, and I just love it. And I'm trying to get these lazy bones off of their asses so that they can do some DMing as well. Well, thank you, Jamanta. Jamanta says he is one of the best I've seen play. Clearly, you haven't watched Matthew Mercer on the show Critical Role, because he is basically what I aspire to be. But I'm not sure that I'm not sure if I'll ever have the capital or the backing that he has. But putting on a D&D show is definitely on the bucket list of things that I want to do with my tabletop career. I definitely want it to be something that I can monetize. And Jamanta says, I said one. Matt is the best now. Play the Ash theme song. I want to be the very best, man. But no. Yeah, Matthew Mercer is definitely my hero. I took a lot of inspiration from his GM tips for this campaign. Definitely a series worth checking out if you want to get into tabletop. But last but not least, Sai's most memorable moment Um, and I want to take a moment. Actually, before we move on to Sai, there was one more thing I wanted to say. I wanted to say that one of Gibson's most memorable moments was how he handled his relationship with Erica, because Erica did turn out being one of the biggest, or a pretty decent swing in power for you guys. She was very pivotal in a lot of situations, even just being able to absorb some hits here or there. But keeping her around as much as you did definitely helped to shape not only the course of the campaign and the course of a lot of fights, but also the rest of the party sort of grew to appreciate Erica as if she was another player character, and that's not something that I frequently see out of NPCs.
Erica became Bay.
Indeed. And last but not least, Sai's most memorable moment. I want to say one of the most impressive things that I saw out of Sai was just his involvement in 90% of the combats that he was in. It was a learning experience, and there were a lot of moments where I was like, bullshit, that's not in the book. And it was. And that's mostly to do with my not completely reading the source material, which I constantly get on to my players about, and I'm just as guilty of it. So you can never read the source material too much, I would say. But definitely one of the things that I appreciated most about Sai's involvement in the campaign was how effectively he grounded the rest of the party. Sai was always kind of there to offer in, like, just maybe a phrase or a couple of words to set the party right back on the right track. It could be argued that Delano did a lot of the same, but I feel like Delano's message 9 times out of 10 drifted down to, this is what I would like to do, but the decision is ultimately yours, whereas Sai actually helped ground the party and make decisions that affected the course of the campaign. So hats off for that. I will say that one of the things that was in the runner for most memorable moment was when he literally blew off the course of whether or not Byron was going to switch sides. And I gotta harp on this for a moment. But Byron was the only one of the 3 agents that you guys could have swapped over to your side, when Monet returned to Diamond and was then sort of courting Sai, that shifted a pretty decent portion of the campaign. All right, now let's get to some of these questions back up here. Let's see. Up at the top, we've got Leah says, I want to know more about Rockefeller's life in Giraz.
Yeah, she does.
Shut up.
Rockefeller, first off, a little bit of a disclaimer. Rockefeller's character design, and I cannot overstate this, but Rockefeller's
Can you just
character
not
design...
state it? Let's just not state it again.
No, the world must know. So here's the thing. Rockefeller was a thought experiment that I thought of. Originally, he wasn't supposed to have this big of a role that he did in the campaign, but what I did was, when I was designing what kind of character he would be, I thought, Leah's really interested in this character. Let me do this. And I immediately just did a lot of thinking and research on what exactly, any of you that know the website, what would be Tumblr's ideal man. And then I made it Rockefeller. He was a man who was concerned with how clean his atmosphere was. He was very detail-oriented, very sensitive. Not exactly the strongest, hunkiest person, but definitely one that Definitely one that was to some degree charismatic, and definitely somebody that you could just curl up and read a book with. Yeah, so I designed him off of Tumblr memes, basically. He's some sort of blend of Sherlock and I don't know, something like that. Some variation of Sherlock and Doctor from Doctor Who, etc. So his life in Giros before Okrive got involved was essentially just running errands for Ephraim. Nothing very glamorous at all. He just studied and ran errands. That's pretty much it. He was born and raised in Giros. He was a half-elf, so his mother came over from Argrove on a journey to enhance her studies, where she met Rockefeller's father. And at first, Rockefeller's father was kind of standoffish, but they actually went to a party function and met each other there, and were forced to tolerate each other's presence for a little bit, and one thing led to another, and it's one of those old stereotypic sort of stories. Let's see. After Leah's question, let's see. After Leah's question, we've got, will you write the campaign into a short book? I really feel it's worth a buy as an ebook. Question from Jamanta. I really don't plan on it. It could be said that a lot of the campaigns that I do could be rewritten as books, but I feel like it would do them more justice to rewrite them as sort of a preset for a campaign. However, I don't really feel like doing that because I don't know, it just doesn't appeal to me. If I'm going to be writing a book, it's definitely going to be more focusing on fewer characters than I usually deal with in a party, I don't know. I feel like it kind of betrays the medium to rewrite it as a story, personally, but other people may feel differently. Let's see. Already answered that one. Melanie asks, will you ever be accepting new applicants? Kind of makes it sound like I'm some sort of glorified CEO looking for people who do the job best, but I definitely would not be opposed to running a campaign that involves, that has players from that I don't know personally. I definitely would be open to that sort of thing. I'd definitely be willing to get into contact with people and run games for people over the internet. I think I would definitely start using Roll20.net a lot more because I do like their service. It's just more convenient for me to run it physically in person, that sort of thing. But to answer your question, I'm always looking for new players. I feel like tabletop gets a bad rap a lot, and I like showing people that it's not as terrible as media and other things portray it to be. We definitely have a fairly diverse group here. Definitely a far cry from your stereotypical 5 guys sitting in a basement, sitting in one guy's mother's basement, eating Doritos and Mountain Dew. We're certainly a far cry from Diva the Gremlin. Let's see. And Jamanta asks, what was your favorite party player? So I guess, obviously, I've made it pretty obvious by this point with my ringing endorsement of Al. But It definitely, I would say, Al was my favorite party member. What about you guys?
Oh, I picked Ratina.
Okay.
I picked owls.
Picked Erica.
What about you, Brandon?
Favorite party member?
Yeah.
That's difficult. I don't know if it's biased, but probably Psy.
All
What
right,
about
Chris.
you, Chris?
Does it have to be someone other than Psy? Because
Yeah, don't
all
vote for yourself.
right. Well, in all honesty, I think I'd have to give it to Bradbury and just how committed Leo was and just playing the character as true to himself.
Yeah, definitely worth a mention. But going back to Al for a moment, who would you pick as your favorite player of the group?
Player.
Hmm?
Whew.
Because I notice in the question it says who is your favorite party player specifically, not your favorite party member.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Oh, whoops.
but definitely worth the mention.
Give me a second here. That's like,
It's a tough one, isn't it?
yeah.
My favorite player was Sunny. She had some great character creation.
Look at the doggo! Look at the doggo!
She's getting mad I'm not paying her attention. I had a
Like, honestly, I would have to say either Leah or Don because you guys were so 100% wrapped up in your characters. Like, it was wild. I was like, man, you guys are so attached to them. Like,
I mean,
trying to get to that point, but like, it is like, it was wild, man.
Yeah. I would say devotion to keeping in character and doing what your character would do is one of the hardest things to really wrap your brain around at the table. Because, you can look at a spreadsheet, you can go online and ask people and figure out, what's the most optimal way to build my character. Or, how do I do the best at this? What's the most efficient method of doing this or that? Or, looking at that sort of thing. What you can't teach is to keep in character, to really role play and stay true to how you've written the character, even if it conflicts against what you would want to do as a person. Let's see. Jamanta asks, do you find playing in person or online via Google Plus better? What pros/cons do you feel in both aspects of play made you come to that answer? Wow, writing that like an answer to an essay.
It's a good one.
Can I answer this real
quick?
quick?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so I much prefer playing in person because you just have the whole atmosphere of like everybody's there, everybody gets to be heard.
Yeah.
But the major con to playing in person is just scheduling around everybody's schedules, and that it's just really hard to get together sometimes.
Yep.
Whereas that's the convenience of playing online. But when you're playing online, you don't feel that, like, I guess the word is camaraderie.
Camaraderie.
Yeah, that.
I would
fellow
disagree. I like playing online better. It's kind of my favorite mode to play because I feel more comfortable getting into character when I don't have to like look at your guys' faces and I can look into my webcam. And then it's easier for me to keep up with like everything on my computer rather than like having it on the sheets and stuff.
Yeah.
And then oh, sorry, go ahead.
And, I'm always going to give you a hard time, Brandon, and say, are you sure that's because of convenience or because of laziness? But I will say that I've seen the work that Brandon puts into maintaining his character sheets and stuff on his computer, and I got to say, it's a lot more work than then I would even consider putting into maintaining a piece of paper with my stats on it. So it's clearly not laziness. That's his preferred setup, and that's fine. I definitely.
Are we just gonna go through and ask each player?
What?
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
Well, my other thing why I say I like the computer better is because, and this isn't related to this campaign, which is kind of sad, but in the other campaign we're playing, and one of my characters is going through a really, really dark moment in her life, and like the other characters like want to talk to her and put her in situations, and as a person, I don't think I could be as mean as she would be at those moments, and like being able to interface like with a third medium between us to like kind of remove the face made it a little bit easier to bring out that character for me.
That's a good point. Al, what do you say? Do you prefer online or in person?
I prefer in person because sometimes, when certain plot points are occurring, it gets really hectic trying to do things online for the simple fact that there's limitations with doing things online. Like multiple people not being able to talk at the same time, not being able to understand that kind of thing, like not being able to understand them, that kind of thing. But when you're in person, it almost feels like whenever your character is, getting ready to give that heart-wrenching monologue or something along those lines, like it just feels like that adrenaline hits a little harder.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, like one of the things is like in person is you can like feel the tension with the other players about like every dice roll.
Yeah. Oh no, doggo.
Or just like the absolute hilarity of your mage just constantly rolling ones.
Leo, what do you think? Online or in person?
I think she is AFK.
Okay, Don, what do you think?
I prefer doing it in person because I hate using a computer for anything that's social.
See, you guys have to tame your computer to fit to you, man. Like, my room is a castle. I'm so comfortable right now.
Yeah, definitely.
I just prefer physical human interactions.
Yeah,
oh, see, that's where we're different. I kind of don't like humans.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that I prefer to do it in person is so that everybody can see the facial expressions while you're role-playing in the moment. And that's one of the reasons that when I do hold a session over the internet, I usually try to have the camera pointed towards my face, because when I'm role-playing an NPC that the party is interacting with, I will try to my greatest extent to maybe try and convey something via a micro expression or a facial expression that will tell the players something, or tip them off to something or the other. Like if the NPC is being dishonest, I might have I might avoid eye contact, or I might grimace, or do this, that, or the other. So for me, as far as the facial expression goes, it's easier to be able to gauge whether or not the party is paying attention purely just by looking at them. But with over the camera, it's basically on the player to make sure that they're paying enough attention. So I definitely believe that you can control the attention more if everybody is in person. It's easier for the DM to do that. You have to have a group that's pretty good with self-discipline to be able to hold their attention over the internet. Personally, that's how I feel about it personally. But let's see. But getting back onto topic, general questions about the story of.
My turn.
Yes, Leah. Sorry, almost forgot.
Okay, so I think I do like the in-person interaction,
Mm-hmm.
and but I also like the convenience of being in my own room.
Yeah.
The only problem is I don't like being on webcam. So
Yeah.
you can't really see the expressions that I make and how I react to such things. So it makes it a little bit more difficult. And I think my forte personally is through writing. So anytime that we're on Roll20, which is really rare, I
love Roll20.
I love being able to post in the chat because
Yeah.
I do feel like my voice sometimes does get a little bit walked over, but that's okay. I'm working on that.
Yep.
Working on
Definitely.
that.
Go ahead.
But yeah, I think the best part about these campaigns are the Google Docs, what we don't see on camera. But that's also coming from someone that has been role-playing since, I don't know, 7-8 years now.
And I just want to say, on the topic of Google Docs, I really, really, really recommend using them as a tool for your campaign, because there are a lot of role-playing moments that it would kind of be awkward just to have them at the table. Sometimes it's really a beautiful moment to have at the table, but at the same time, if it's a tender moment in your role-playing, you really want, if you're going to do it at the table, you kind of want it to be able to involve more than just 2 people, depending on party size. You know, it's fine if you've only got a party of 4 people, but my average party size for the past 2-3 years has been 6 people, if not more. So it's not something that, you know, you can feasibly do at a table with a party of 6, because you're already fitting 7 people around the table, including the DM. So it's difficult to pull off those sorts of moments at the table sometimes. I highly recommend using Google Docs for your role-playing between 2 players or a player and an NPC. Let's see, Jamanta asks, do you prefer playing an emotional character or one who's ruled by logic? I am not going to make a decision on that, because I like playing, it really depends on my mood. I'll play one or I'll play the other. I'll play both. I'll play characters who are neither logical nor really, really emotional.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. You know, you can have a, and we'll go around, but I just want to say, you can have a character who is normally like this logical person, but who, in the face of some sort of event, just bursts out with this energy or this this rage that you know, the rest of the party rarely sees from them.
Well, I mean, that could also explain the whole entire ruled by logic to emotional. Bradbury did that during the campaign.
Absolutely. And that was one of the bits that I liked about his defection to that point. But we'll go through each player. Al, do you prefer logic or emotional characters?
You're muted.
Yeah, I have to go with, like, I'm about to follow up and say, yeah, like, the whole logic, but it's emotionally driven. Like, everything you do is, you know, governed by logic, but you're really passionate about it.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think, Chris?
It's kind of hard because as a person, I don't really let emotions govern my decisions and most things. So, but I do like being very expressive. I do like being very emotional. So I think it's just, when it comes to decisions, logic, but when it comes to just interacting with people, emotional.
Yeah. What about you, Brandon?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Brandon, the
Right.
question is, do you prefer playing an emotional character or one who is ruled by logic?
I will say I've had a lot more fun playing very emotional characters. because in life, like, you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah.
And like when you're role playing, it's fun to just like throw that off, and it's like, yeah, I know I should do this, but I want to do this instead.
Yeah, absolutely. Leah, what about you? I think we know what you're going to say.
What am I gonna say?
Probably emotional.
I'm gonna say a mixture of both. Because I roleplay a lot of logic-driven characters, and I'm not very good at portraying it, but I can write it pretty well, I like to think.
Yeah.
But actually portraying it in character in person is the biggest challenge I've ever had.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Don?
Man, fuck logic. I'm all about the emotions.
I think we all knew this.
I mean, I cried like 3 times during this thing.
Yeah, definitely.
4 if you count the time Leah just scared you.
I didn't cry, I was laughing.
One of the things I'd like to add on about what I was saying was, like, towards the end of the campaign, Sai was getting just angry a lot.
Yeah.
But he never let any of his anger govern his decisions, and I felt like that was a good example of the way Sai was. He was a very wise character, but he wasn't intelligent or charismatic at all.
Yeah.
So he just, a lot of the things he did was with just his gut feeling.
Yeah. And we'll go ahead and knock this question out of the way. Tamanta asks, do you plan on starting a new game soon? Just asking so I can put on the schedule to watch. Well, it warms the very cockles of my heart that you would be willing to set aside time to either catch the live stream or just watch the videos that we post. I'm not going to be DMing the next campaign that we do. That's going to be somebody else. And it'll be a nice change of pace for me because I've DM'd the last
3, 2.
I want to say 5 or 6 campaigns that I've been a part of.
There was my campaign that you're a part of, but
that's
the
true.
players were super lazy, other than you and Taylor.
Well, I mean, we also did a campaign with Chris. That was a crawl, though. Never mind.
Yeah.
A crawl with Chris and Don.
Yeah, there was a crawl I did, but that ended in 5.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man, you put that on. Anyway.
Are we not even going to talk about the other 2?
The other crawls that we did?
No, the other campaigns.
I think JD mentioned them. He said the last 5.
No, we had 2 other.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I am currently still running those 2, but yeah. Aside from that, as far
Forging
as
Paths is like.
Forging Paths is a roller coaster, man. It's getting real intense.
It goes from fun to depressing to fun to depressing. We're in super depressing right now.
It's got a really slow start. I would actually recommend skipping the first 2 episodes of Forging Paths because not a whole lot happens. You could probably skip a couple of the episodes that I've titled "Pissing Around Town" because that's a lot of pissing around town and just wasting time.
I mean, you could just watch the last 3 and that'd probably be good.
Actually, they might be lost with the characters if they don't watch the first episode.
Yeah.
Well, no, because remember we started off with 8 players in that campaign, but then we almost immediately lost one, and then Sean was shortly.
No, we lost 2.
Yeah, we
at the beginning.
more or less lost 2, like right out the gates, because
we lost 3 of our 8. Picked up 1,
and then we picked up 1. But no, like I said, I'm flattered that you would take time out of your busy day to watch a medium that I so do enjoy. But as far as what's in the future, that's actually out of my hands. I can definitely say that once it does get started, I really hope that I'll be considered for being a player. But I understand that you can only choose so many players, and you can only choose so many players because of what you're comfortable with, what your skill level is, and just who you want to play with. I totally understand wanting to form an entirely different group with new people. There are actually several people that I have in mind that I really would like to start a campaign with, but it's just not at this point in time feasible. Let's see. Chris asks, player reflections on their characters. Well, I can't really offer any of that, so let's just go down the list. And I do have in mind how your portraits line up on my screen. So let's start out with Al. What do you think about your? What would you reflect upon your character with Al?
When you say reflect upon, like things that I would think further about, or
just general thoughts that you have, I would say. Things you liked, things you didn't like.
I
kind of like how my character started off as like this happy-go-lucky, fun-loving bard, and then just totally shifted into something completely different. Like this person who's almost one with the universe, or trying to be, at least trying to protect, the world and the greater good and all that stuff. Like started off, just always like trying to have fun, really. And then things kind of just took a turn. Like, I guess it was that moment after Fort Travas, like after he died and came back to life, like things kind of shifted for him.
Yeah. That was about the time you started taking paladin levels.
Yeah, it was. Like, it was almost like seeing Paylor for the first time, just like, whoa, like this place is much bigger than you and I. We have to actually put forth some type of effort to protect the plains, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Brandon, reflections on your character. And I'm going to try to. I would encourage you to try and keep these to some degree of concise, because I know Don will have to be leaving soon. We can keep the stream going for a little bit after that, but
I'll try and be super quick.
Yeah.
I didn't put as much effort into Gibson's story as I wanted to, because I think I was like the last player recruited for this campaign, and it was like people just said, "Hey, we need a frontliner," and I was like, "Oh, I guess I'll put together a fighter." And I designed him more for combat, and like didn't pay too much attention to his story. And then halfway through the campaign, I started playing a game called like Life is Futile. I don't know if you guys remember that. And I rolled up a like female character on that game that ended up becoming a priest, and the GMs on the server said they were going to ban me from the game if I didn't roleplay my character. I was like, I just made this because it looks pretty, and so it like kind of forced me to RP a little bit. And then like once I got more into that, I was just like, oh, fudge, I can do a lot better with my D&D characters. I think Gibson's story towards the end got a lot better when he was kind of struggling with his humanity and stuff.
Definitely. What about you, Chris? Answer your own question.
I feel like a lot of the high points in seeing Sai for who he was captured in the RPs, which was behind the scenes.
Yeah.
As a character. Mostly in most of the sessions, he was just kind of seen as, what is this? This is basically a kid who can just. He's not smart. He's just. Nobody really talked to him. Nobody paid him any really attention. But he was very, as JD said at one point earlier, very down to earth. Like there was no struggle in his decisions. He just kind of always knew what was right and what was wrong. And I think that was also part of like emotions not governing his decision. That was just him working off his wisdom. And I think I did a really good job with Sai in playing someone who's not smart but is wise.
Yeah. One of the things that I thought was appealing about Sai was, for Sai, it seemed to him like there was only ever one path. He never really struggled with indecision, and he seemed to excel in combat to a very great degree. But the thing that made it interesting, even though he never really struggled himself with the decisions that he had to make, the struggle for Sai was in the decisions that the party made around him and in response to the decisions that he made. And that was the interesting part about his character, I think, was how he dealt with not what he did, but what others did.
Mm-hmm.
Leah.
Oh, it's not Dawn on your screen that's next?
Nope.
Oh. Okay. So I'm just going to go back to the whole entire RPs behind the scenes. A lot of the RPs that me and Sai or Chris did between each other, a lot of it had to do with questioning the right and wrong of the world. Like, so we had a lot of reflection on that, and I think that's one of the things that motivated Bradbury a lot was, is there really a right and wrong way? Is there really good and evil? Is there, like, he's all about the knowledge, and at the very beginning of the campaign, all he wanted to do was learn everything there was to learn. He wanted to learn every language, wanted to learn every spell. And then he meets this one person that makes him want to learn together with someone. And then I guess it was just one of those points where he really started questioning the existence of everything, because this person was on the bad side, and we were on the good side, and things were black and white. So, I don't know.
Yeah. I definitely love seeing those struggles of morality as well, where even if I can just like portray it through an NPC, that sort of thing, where the discussion comes up, you know, is this really right? Is this really wrong? Can we say definitively, or is there even a metric by which we can judge that? A lot of people say yes to that question. Some people say no. Go ahead.
I can argue this point forever, but it's just, it has to do with perspective and how each person sees things. And
Absolutely.
it's like if you're raised to have that perspective, then that's what you know is right. And then somebody comes along and they're like, no, that's wrong. And it's like, well, what's wrong and what's right?
Yeah.
Really, what is truth?
What is
Really?
truth? All right, Don. Reflections on Monet. Is there
I love
anything you would have done differently, or what?
Well, about her character?
Yeah.
I would probably make her more, what's the word, talkative? Because she didn't seem to want to be outgoing, and she mostly stayed shy throughout the whole campaign. So that's one thing I would have changed.
Well, I feel like with Monet, there was reason for her to be shy in the beginning because she was a drow.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, yeah, at one point it did evolve to, like, well, who cares, she's a drow. but yeah, she didn't. I can agree with you. From that point on, she probably could have become a little bit more outgoing.
I also have to say that I think that Dawn's character within the RP folder like evolved. So it's not to say that she stayed shy the whole entire time. It's just in person, the interaction was kind of forced, maybe?
A little bit. And that's another reason why I very highly endorse the Google Docs method for role-playing, because it does allow you to see another side of the character than the one that you portray at the table. Because some people just aren't as comfortable with speaking out at the table as others are. So it's important to make sure that everybody is provided for in a way. And whether that's allowing them to acclimate to being comfortable at the table or presenting them with an alternate medium where they can more adequately express themselves is very important. One of the segments that I wanted to get to, but wasn't sure if we had. But now that I'm looking at it, I'm not sure if we have time. Was like things that more along the lines that pertained to the story itself or the characters therein. But I do like what we've been doing so far, which is just basically leaving the floor open to questions.
Yeah, I really like the questions.
Yeah. All right. Al asks players and how they behave when they are aware of information that their character are not.
What?
That's
Do you
more of
wanna-
a statement than a question.
I think that's like a.
Yeah.
How do players deal with having the knowledge that their characters should not?
More of just a topic of discussion.
Okay.
Man,
yeah,
that shit is hard.
All right, so
Yeah.
what Al's referring to is the division between player knowledge and character knowledge. You see, your character knows a different set of things, and the player knows an entirely separate set of things. For example, if I were playing a simpleton character, there would be no reason for me at the table to suggest to the rest of the party, hey, let's go do this thing. There's not a chance that we'll run into a purple worm because this is not the right environment for it. There's no way that my character would know that, but I as a player do know that, and I can more accurately assess whether or not we'd be successful against such an opponent because that's what I know. Accurately portraying that division between player knowledge and character knowledge is something. It's definitely a skill that a lot of people have a hard time with. For his part, Al actually said that he wasn't going to read any of the role plays in the Google Docs because he didn't want to make himself privy to things that his character would not know, because he wasn't confident in his ability to keep his player and character knowledge separate. And it's definitely a skill that you learn. Some people are more given to it than others. Some can make that dissociation more easily than others.
Like, there were definitely times where I was like, crap, like, I really want to know all of this stuff that's going on right now. But it's just like, at the same time, if I had found out, I know for a fact I would have been playing my character differently. So it kind of messed with me a little bit because there was so much going on behind the scenes. Like, there was so much happening.
Like, one thing I do notice is that when the player knows something that the character does not, we tend to see a lot more insight checks or sense motive checks.
Yeah.
But I think a good example of this is in the other campaign where the party met one of JD's.
You're talking about Ricard?
Yeah, more infamous characters, Ricard.
Yeah, who did not make an appearance this campaign. But yeah, that's one of the things that I like to do. I like to recycle a lot of characters. For example,
Mostly Ricard.
Well, Ricard is. Yeah,
And
Ricard. Well, to be fair, this is only the second time that I've used Oak Rife, so he's not really one of the ones that I would list as a go-to, but definitely Ricard and Armos and similar characters, I definitely reuse those. But it's interesting because most of the party already knows Ricard's story in the other campaign from a previous campaign that I ran where he was a major character, and they were well acquainted with exactly the type of person that he was. So there was definitely a little bit of apprehension from a fair number of the party. They were like, "No, we know Ricard's a bad dude. We're not going to get involved with him." But a couple
that
of
was
the
definitely Brandon.
yeah, a couple of well, Makana is already standoffish, but
No, Makana got involved with him. The first night she saw him, like in the tavern, she saw Hannah too, and she was like, "And I'm gonna follow that."
yeah.
That wasn't my decision as a player. It's how I feel like she'd act as a character.
Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely a good example of player versus character knowledge, and I think I've got to say I'm really satisfied with the way that we're handling it in the Sunday night group.
I think a good thing to also help deal with that is when you come across like a hint or a suggestion to allows your character to know what you as a player know, is you don't want to jump on that hint or that suggestion and just go like, oh, if that means this and this means this and so on and so forth, and you just unravel the plot for your character, where your character would just go like, huh, that's interesting.
Hey, you know the secrets to not knowing anything for your character to not know about anything?
Play a
It's just a
clueless character?
No, it's just to forget it all like me.
Oh yeah, we did come across that, didn't we? Oh yeah, we did do that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But no. But yeah, as just as an ending note for that question, it's definitely a skill that you learn. There's no way to get better at it than by just practicing it.
Or forgetting.
Or forgetting.
The only problem with not reading the documents, like I understand why you didn't do it, but you miss out on a lot of character development. And I think that was one of the best parts about the RPs.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Theo on that. Like, I felt like in the RPs it gives you an idea of in the RPs you have better control over what your character says and what your character does. So I feel like that gives you a better idea of what your character is like in between the scenes. So, like, I will not deny I still feel like I'm pretty bad at role playing in person at the session at the table, but
You're doing pretty damn good with Ken.
Yeah.
You're definitely a grade A asshole.
Good.
Okay, but yeah, like I feel like that would help give like the other players a better inkling, a better idea of what that character is actually like. And like for instance with Sai, and like a lot of the earlier sessions he was pretty much a doofus, just straight up doofus, whereas in the RPs he was kind of a doofus, but he was just more like that chill kind of feel.
Yeah.
I think it was more like the atmosphere that made me act as if he was such a major doofus.
Mhm. Okay. Now I have a question for each of you.
Okay.
and this is part of my constant quest for feedback. What are some things that you guys think I could have done better and or handled better, or possibly scaled better? And we're going to start with Al.
Damn it.
I'm gonna hold my action.
Okay, all right. Well, since Leah was chomping at the bit, we'll start with her then.
Fucking want a happy ending. Shit.
Not bittersweet.
Actually,
Yeah, no, not bittersweet at all. I wanted a happy freaking ending.
So,
But that's okay.
so in
it's
the
okay.
realm of video games, like I would consider that as like a good ending, but there was still a perfect ending waiting if you were to beat it on, max difficulty.
Yeah. Something like that.
I mean, besides that factor, I would have liked more interaction between some of the NPCs that you made. Like, more so in an RP setting, because it is hard to roleplay at the table. And yeah, I think it would have been easier to do more sessions in the docks.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Are we moving on?
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind like a live docs reading, like let the docs go on, and then maybe at the start of every other session, like the players that were involved, like stop and read the docs for everybody like else at the table, and like you could RP it or you just read it and.
Well, the problem with that is that the reason that we do it in the docs is so that we don't have to do it at the table. It would be way too time consuming to do that.
Well, I mean, you'd save a lot of time without people stopping to think about stuff, because it'd literally be like 10 minutes to read it.
He has a point.
Yeah, possibly. But there are some weeks where, there's no activity in the docs.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Things like this past week, there have already been 5 new additions to the docs in the Forging Paths.
I would blame Leah for that. I think Leroy had a hand in each one of those RPs.
No. There are other culprits, but
Yeah, like Dawn.
Yeah,
And Erica.
I will admit that Leah is one of the biggest proponents of
Wait, what?
role playing.
I have to argue that fact. It would be Dawn.
What's wrong? What happened?
We're talking about things that you guys would have liked to see me do better. Hey Don, wasn't Miriam supposed to be at your place by now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on, I need to see if she texted me while I was in the bathroom.
Okay.
Where are you going?
Brandon, that was less things that I could have done better and more suggestions to implement.
Yeah, that's what, just suggestions to improve.
Okay. So basically, do a thing differently that I've done intentionally to save on time at each table session, and instead detract from the time. Got it.
I mean, we don't have to do it in the session.
No.
We could do it before.
Yeah. But like one of the things, like my beef with that is that I try to emphasize showing up on time to everybody, or at least like logging on to the video stream on time to everybody, and it never happens. We're always late. So that's one of the reasons that I try to save as much time at the table as I can, is because I don't know if we're going to start 5 minutes late or 30 minutes late or an hour late or this, that, or the other. So that's one of the reasons that I don't do that intentionally. But Brandon, if you have any other suggestions or questions, thoughts, comments, I would love to hear them.
one of the things I think I mentioned to you at the end of the campaign was I felt the structure of the campaign was a little bit too rigid. Of if we stepped outside the story, it didn't feel like there was really anything for us to do, and like there were a lot of times where it was like, okay, we go here to do this, and it's like, okay, and we were just kind of standing around there. And then there were a couple other moments where I feel like we had major breakthroughs or major moments that we did right as a group. Not a lot of them, but they didn't change the overall ending and pacing of the story. That we were kind of on a track for the story.
I think one of the most.
I will admit, this is probably the closest that I've ever been to railroading the party. So yeah, you got me there.
I think one of the biggest concerns that I had was for the boss fight right before we got onto the airship. Like, it felt like it was completely pointless to even engage them. Like, they were just there, and then they weren't, and it's like we had to see them get away again and again and again.
That was frustrating.
It was very frustrating. And it didn't help that Wish didn't really go as planned. And yeah.
Yeah. And that is one of the things with Wish, though, is that it is attempting to do something that is unreliable at best.
Don, what are you doing?
I have goggles.
But yeah, I will admit that one, that fight at the vault was kind of staged. I really could have done a better job with that one. Definitely. Any other moments of feedback? Al, do you have anything? Oh, Chris.
Well, I'm gonna kind of agree, but rephrase with Brandon. I would have liked more side quests, more reasons to like explore the world, because for me it felt like we were like, as soon as first session started, was bam, necromancy, it's illegal. Why were they here, and what the hell is Vecna? And then all of a sudden we hear there's necromancy over in Fort Travas, so we boom over there, and it just kind of felt like we were just being pinballed all over the map, and we didn't get to stop and look around a whole lot for any of it. And like, it almost felt like, I don't know if it was just because we made the steam machine, but I felt like there was no way we would have kept up with what was going on if we didn't have the steam machine.
Yeah.
There was also points where I'm going to agree with Chris on this one and say that we really did need a lot more little quests, kind of like the ones that we have in the Sunday night group, where my character can have an actual goal. He can go and he can collect items, and it's kind of like playing Zelda. You go, you retrieve this item, you take it back, you get a reward. Holy crap!
Fetch quests.
The reason...
Yeah, and I will say, it's definitely... the way that this campaign was set up was definitely intended to be more linear, but once again, you know, at the beginning of the session, we used the same page tool, and at the time, the general consensus was that a single, more linear plot was what the majority decided on. So that's one reason for it. But I will admit that once again, this is probably the closest that I've come to railroading, and I really personally think that I could have done better with the structure of it.
Well, I do want to give props to one thing. I feel like the Dallahan side quest was incredibly well done. It tied Athens Von Trigger to Hercules Von Trigger, and we just learned about that whole family dynamic and how it even tied to Rail
Hmm.
in a sense. And
Hello?
it felt like it just enriched the world,
Yeah.
and that was just something I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. And I feel like that's definitely probably one of the missed opportunities that I didn't put in more side content like that. And I feel like maybe if I had done that, we wouldn't have kind of rushed toward the end there. Because it definitely kind of felt like at that point we were just kind of in it for getting to the end, more or less.
One thing I wanted to add. When we were getting towards the end,
Mhm.
my character was having a lot of issues because he felt like we weren't progressing in eliminating the cult. Because Oakraft always got away, of course, but he's the big bad dude we fight at the end. But we never picked off the agents. I mean, the only people we were really bringing down were just the grunts, and the grunts never seemed to run out. So I had a hard time feeling like we were progressing, and it just came to a point of almost feeling like there was a hopelessness of, are we ever going to beat them?
Attention, everyone.
Honestly,
Testicle. That is all.
I think what was going on with that, I think that was more of us beating ourselves at that point, because there were two agents that were almost off the table for us to kill because of player involvement.
Okay, yeah, so Rockefeller at the top of the mountain definitely would have been one of them.
Mm-hmm. And
the
Byron,
whole-
you could have turned.
Yeah, could have turned, but yeah, I kind of fucked that up. Not bad.
and if you notice, we actually offed one of the agents dang near immediately.
Yeah, we got rid of the
Drow.
drow. Can't
Yeah.
even remember her name. Their name.
Harlots.
Its name.
We got rid of the right one. That was the hardest one to fight.
Just bam, fly swatter.
Yeah, and on that note, I do want to mention I've been trying to do better as far as and you can call me out on social justice or whatever, but I've been trying to more adequately include the full spectrum of whole character dealy thingy. And Harlax was actually the only character that I had written in the campaign that was trans. So that's a little sub-note there. Didn't really get into that because your involvement with that agent was non-existent. But yeah. So no, the peak was one of the main moments for you guys to permanently kill one of the agents. Past that, the other members of the cult, Eula Godriel, Bifin, Gandrin, Irel, those sorts of characters, you did dispatch Irel before he managed to escape. And he was one of the ones that you did, you didn't have to fight him again, basically. Eula Godriel was fully intended to be one of those that kind of made things seem hopeless and like fighting a losing battle. Even though your first encounter with Eula Godriel was Delana critting him twice and destroying his existence. But to hear you say that that's kind of how you felt, that was actually something that I intended.
Okay.
Having that sense of hopelessness kind of hit at home and kind of reflected itself in the RPs a little bit. Definitely added that kind of stress to you guys at the table, which detracted a little bit from the fun, but I feel brought a more authentic feel to the story.
I mean, I could definitely understand that.
Mhm.
I mean, it was like, I think what really like made me like just probably was the biggest stake in the heart was like the fact of if they wanted to, they could bring back anybody they wanted to. What with Oakrife being a cleric and them having the clone spell.
Mhm.
I mean, it felt like, well, even if we did kill them, would they stay dead?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at the very end, when Bradbury did change sides, he and Rockefeller made clones together, and well, not together, but in the same time span area, and I was hoping that it would mature before the end of the campaign so I could actually use it, but I don't know. What the fuck, Dawn? Yeah.
Okay. Al, do you have any criticism to lay on?
I don't know. Like, I think everyone else has pretty much hit on everything that I was thinking of. Like,
Okay.
nothing else besides that, really.
Yeah.
But I do want to just add this after all the criticizing. It was an amazing campaign. Like, just damn. I really did like the linear feel of it. The like in that first campaign I joined with Renan, we were just kind of bouncing all over the place and we didn't really know what we were doing. And the campaign kind of ended before we knew it. But this one, there was a very clear goal in mind, and I really did enjoy that.
Okay. All right. Let's try to be winding down here pretty soon. Does anybody have any last thoughts, questions, or comments? We'll try to get to them in the short span of time we have left.
I think everything's pretty much answered for me.
Okay. Not any characters or story points that you guys want to ask about?
Hey, real quick question.
Yeah. Yes.
What?
Oh, I think she muted her mic.
No, I think she's on her phone. I think she's.
I know where to go. You want me to type it in?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
I can get it go. Oh, sorry, mate. I'm leaving like right now. But I have one question to ask.
Yeah.
How big was everybody's day?
Ripped on?
GG, well played. Well, she'll message us, I guess. Nothing else to add?
Good stuff, was fun.
Definitely.
I'm kind of sad nobody played a ranger. I had a archer build I wanted to play, but didn't get any. It didn't get good until like level 5.
Like Ranger is actually like the next class that I was thinking about playing.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I want to play a ranger, but I want to see somebody else do it first because they, like Wizard said, they made rangers accidentally really underpowered this edition. They
Yeah,
released
but
a
they
fix
did.
for them.
But yeah, they did release that. What was it? That what was it?
Unearthed Arcana.
Yeah, that they said they kind of fixed them in that aspect.
Yeah. I had a. This was from that crawl we did. I had a 9th level. It was a 3-level thief, or a 3-level rogue, 3-level fighter, 3-level ranger for an archer, and I thought it was a really nice build.
Yeah, it
Someday.
definitely worked really nice. I remember that crawl. That was the crawl where Chris figured out, oh, JD knows how to build characters.
So I feel like that was part that and part me not knowing how to balance an encounter with uh character levels because I just threw a bunch of like low CR creatures at y'all.
Well, part of it was that. Part of it was um, if you did hand us a couple of freebies at the start of the thing that helped round out some of the weaknesses of the thing, but I feel like part of that may have been just the fact that we were all kind of new to 5th edition and didn't really know what any of us were doing.
I mean, I was following the DMG about how to balance the encounter, and I was reading up on it, and I was like, all right, so just one abominable yeti should be like an almost deadly encounter for these guys.
Abominable.
Yeah, abominable. I can't talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then y'all did like decimated those regular yetis, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna throw 2 abominable yetis at them. Abominable.
Yes, there you go. You got it.
Okay. So I threw 2 of those at y'all, and y'all still decimated them. And I was like, well,
Yeah,
that's kind of it for the crawl. So
half of that to blame though was for it just being me and JD
Yeah.
as like controlling 4 characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things. If you let one veteran player build an entire party, he's going to have a group that will win every single combat that they're a part of, unless they're just that far out of depth. Like,
another thing I learned about that is building good terrain in a crawl. Because I just had it as open like plains, and yeah, that didn't work out.
Yeah. All right. So if nobody has any more questions, I think we'll close out with some last thoughts and comments. Al, have you got anything else you'd like to say?
Give me a second. Let me roll a d20. There it is. Hold on. It was almost a crit fail. I rolled a 2.
Oh,
I got nothing.
you got nothing? Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Brandon? Any last thoughts?
Play the ranger. That was it. Good campaign. I wanna DM for you guys sometime again because I feel like that crawl was kind of rushed, put between things, and I don't know. I don't like leaving people with a bad experience in their mouth.
Yeah. Chris?
I mean, personally, I had a lot of fun with Psy. Like, for one thing, I feel like Monk is probably going to be my favorite class ever anyway. But the fact that I've made him to the point where I just pissed you off so bad every combat. I felt
Imagine if
really
you were an
great
elf.
about that.
Yeah. Leah, any less thoughts on it?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Nice.
Yes or no?
Uh,
Do you want to take a moment to say something, or shall we close out the call?
I liked it. I liked the campaign. I liked how all of our characters got to have some kind of development. I think one of the biggest and funnest parts of D&D for me is the character building. And to be put in situations where we as players and playing the characters have to choose for our characters the morals in which you put in front of us or the DM puts in front of us. And I think that's, I don't know, I can't explain to you how enjoyable it has been to play. I mean, there have been frustrating points, but it outweighs the fun experiences.
I'll agree
Or,
with that.
Fun experiences outweigh the bad ones.
yeah, whatever. You know what I'm saying.
You can't English good.
I'm flustered.
Being put on the spot.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to say it has been one hell of a journey getting to the end of this one. It was a big learning curve because this was the first 5th edition campaign that I ran. So I was unfamiliar with a lot of the stuff that worked, and you can see in a lot of the videos how I actually clearly got frustrated with misremembering things or not having the answer off the top of my head like I do in 3.5 campaigns. But I will say this has been some of the most fun that I have had in a campaign in a long time. You know, it takes a lot of effort to do a good campaign, partly because you know, you can set up a campaign with as many bells and whistles as you want, but at the end of the day, you know, it's not going to be how well you did setting it up, but how much fun you had along with the players that are a part of the party. And I notice that the times when I'm having the most fun as a DM are not when, you know, the story goes exactly how I've written it, but instead when instead of the DM, I feel like another player at the table. And I only ever really feel like that when the players are having just as much fun as they can possibly have at the table. So, in light of that, just wanted to say, kind of, you know, thanks for dealing with the campaign, even throughout all of the gripes that you guys had about it. I really do appreciate both the feedback and your willingness to get through to the end of the campaign with me. I know at the end some of you were feeling like it was kind of starting to drag on a little bit. And, you know, looking back, I have a couple of ideas that I could have maybe used to, you know, prevent it from starting to drag like that. But at the end of the day, I don't think I would go back and change it. I like the story that we told, and I'd like to keep it that way. Thanks for joining me for this campaign. Thanks for joining me for this Q&A. And I hope to see you guys in the next campaign. So, thank you.
Was fun.
All right, and for the last time, this has been an episode of D&D Cascade. We're a bunch of assholes who sit around the table and roll dice. You can be too at the end of the day. So go out there and may you roll just as many natural 20s as you do natural ones.
Statistically, that's probable.
Precisely.
All right, peace out, guys.
Peace.